how to be a software developer in high demand in the market. I'm here with Eduardo so that we can discuss this topic. Hello, Eduardo. How are you?
Oh, good.
Very good to have you here again. And let's discuss briefly some ideas about this important topic because it's a worry for many developers that they might not be able to keep up with technologies. They feel overwhelmed. There are so many things to learn. And I know that many developers procrastinate because there are so many things to learn and study. And I know that many developers go through the tutorial hell on YouTube and they watch lots of tutorials, but they lack the confidence to develop a project from scratch and to be confident as a software engineer. I know this is a big problem for many developers. So I want to hear from you some strategies and some thoughts you have regarding that so that developers can be more confident and so they can be in high demand in the market.
Okay, good, good. I think for me specifically, on my personal day to day, I think there's two things that I try to keep in my mind. The first one is be organized in everything that you're going to do, because otherwise you just lose time, you lose track of time. And the second one, you need to be, let's say, you need to like what you're doing. You need to be motivated about the work you're doing. You need to be motivated of the code you're doing, on the project you're working on, and future prospects. So if you're on a project that you don't like or you're not motivated, I think it lacks interesting of learning. You're interested for learning, it's way reduced. So one thing that I realized when I moved to Ireland, and this is personal feeling, I feel managers here are better, well prepared. They're better prepared for managing people. And this is might be just my personal experience in the end. So we need to be careful depending on the project or the company you are. You might not have a really good manager. But I think here you're more open to express your future goals, to look for future challenge for something that you're interested. If you're looking for managing people, I think your manager can help you get there. If you're looking to become a very good developer, a project manager, or even a tech lead, they can actually help you get there with tips, with projects, and with opportunity. And I think one of the things that we lack as software developers is the soft skills to first communicate that really good. Because for me personally, it's very hard, it's very complicated to have those, I would call those hard talks. Like what will be your progression? What are you thinking about yourself in a year, too, right? What is a career goals that you want to try to achieve? And it's very hard to actually say to your manager, hey, you know what? This is not where I see myself in 2 years. I want to be a tech lead. And your project might not need a tech lead. But I think you need to be open. Like you don't need to diminish the work or the team that you are right now, but you can also be frank saying, hey, I want to become a tech lead. I want to progress to that level. And I want to show right now that I can do that in the future. So I want to do the best job right now. So I think it's a little bit of a soft skills, and you need to be more upfront with your manager. Make sense?
Makes sense. That's very good insight. So basically talk to your manager. Be open to your manager. Tell him or her your objectives and so that you can work together on your career progression. And like Eduardo said, it's good for you to tell your manager upfront. Don't wait because if you wait a long time, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to wait. I don't know, maybe 6 months or 1 year. There will be another whole process for your promotion. So if you tell your manager right away what's your objective, you can start working on those goals right away. And your manager will help you by guiding you what you need to do exactly. So that's a very important tip. I also see that in Ireland happening. So you need to work with your manager. Definitely. That helps a lot.
You need to be upfront of what you want to work as well. It doesn't need to be like your progressions, but you can be upfront, say, hey, I'm looking now for a career transition. I'm working on the back end, but I want to move to a front end more projects in the future or in the next project. But your manager cannot gas that. So you need to be respectful and upfront, say, hey, this is what I would love to do. I know you're never going to be doing 100% of what you want, but you need to also explain your career prospects, your career goals, and what you want to achieve. And it's fine to just be a developer. You don't need to become a manager. I think in Brazil, there's this pressure. The only way you can actually grow is becoming a manager. So the only way you can get more money is becoming a manager. And I think we need to start thinking, oh, I might want just to stay technical. I want to be very technical focused. And this is me personally. I don't see myself managing people. I don't like the type of job. It's not that I can't do, but it's not the type of thing I want to do.
Yeah. It's not the type of thing I want to do as well. Uh, but that's a good point, right? Because nowadays, there are many other levels as a software engineer. You can be an architect, you can be a principal software engineer. So, and the
Mentor, I
other,
think mentorship is also that is growing a lot. Like companies are looking for, it doesn't need to be a tech lead or a principal, but really good developers that can mentor juniors, that can help them grow as well in the team.
yeah, that's very good as well. That's a good path to take.
Yep.
I know you work for Meta, and I know it's not easy to work for a big tech and to get a job in a big tech company. So, how do you keep a high performance work for a big tech?
One thing that was a shock when I joined Meta is that the technology stack that I knew, it wasn't needed. So one thing that they are looking a lot, and this is part of the hiring process. It doesn't matter the language you're familiar with. It doesn't matter what you're coding. When you get there, you're gonna have a boot camp. I used to be 3 months, but you're gonna get familiar with the versioning tools, coding tools that they use internally, the infrastructure, even the coding parameters, I would say, like configurations, how do they deploy? So it's completely different from company to company. So I think in my mind, what we need to stop caring about is languages and specific frameworks. And what we need to start looking is in every part of your job, of your daily job, is how can I increase how can I increase my output? And it doesn't need to be I'm coding more, but it might be what are the things that I should be coding that will give an edge or advantage company wise, business wise as well. And it doesn't need to be like, oh, I need to make more money. No, it's not only about money or number of customers. You might be working internally on tooling and you need to help other developers or whatever you're building, how this is going to be reused across your company, how this can be leveraging other people's skills as well to achieve a better output in the future. So it's not only the short term, but the long term as well. So you need to, again, go back and think, how can I increase my output? How can I increase my impact? And this is what senior developers always struggle a little bit to understand what is actually needed. So it's not the perfect coding. It's not the perfect coding style. It's what are the last effort to achieve a better output? And as you start to understand that, you're going to produce more, you're going to impact more other developers. So that's why mentorship is very important as well. So it doesn't matter if you are the best developer in your team or in your company. It matters that can you produce the same levels? Can you help your teammates to produce the same level of code quality, code output? I think this gets us to what will be considered, in my opinion, the best developer or the best way to produce quality software. And I think is readability. Always readability. Always go for whatever I'm producing right now, how this can be reused, improved, and rebuilt tomorrow. If I'm going away and the next developer jumps in, how can he understands what I did or what I tried to do, and how can he improve now moving forward?
Okay, so you mentioned some topics here that I'm curious about knowing your perspective. So you mentioned about mentorship. So what's the best way to mentor developers and make sure they are creating high quality software, make sure they are doing their job in the best way as possible? So what are your strategies about that?
In my opinion, there's two ways you can achieve or improve your mentorship skills. The first one is empathy. You need to understand that each developer has a different, it's in a different moment of his career. And also his skills are different. He went to different universities. He started working on different technologies. And the second one is example. I think you need to always guide by example. So if you're not coding, you're never going to be able to teach code skills. So you need to be able to help and developer and do some code sessions, trainings. Also, maybe you could set up a lunch and learn, but you need to do through example and you need to be consistent as well. If you're doing once in a year, it's not going to matter, right? So,
Yeah,
example, consistency.
be an example, lead by example and
So,
consistency.
example, empathy and consistency. You need to be doing that on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You cannot expect to produce one lunch and learn per year and think, hey, I'm mentoring. No, you need to be consistent. You need to be approachable, and you need to be empathies.
Yeah, and also like a lunch and learn, it's something that happens once a while, right? This is
Yes.
not what makes the big difference from a day-to-day job. So how do you mentor other developers on the day-to-day job?
So on a day to day, I think first you need to be approachable. So whenever someone reaches you for help, you need to be approachable. You need to be able to, hey, let's connect. Let's do an hour session. Let's analyze your code. Code review is very important as well. You need to be doing code reviews constantly. You need to be unblocking your teammates as well. Otherwise, you're not going to be mentoring. So I think code review is also a really strong point for mentorship. And code reviews sometimes feels like a battle, and it shouldn't be.
No.
It should be something very lightweight and it should be very approachable. You shouldn't be harsh on code review.
Yeah. There might be issues though when one developer has a way to think and the other has another one. So when you're a mentor, you have to know what is the balance, what fight you want to pick, because sometimes you pick a fight with a small change on a pull request that doesn't really make much of a difference. And then you might be in a discussion that will just waste your time.
It's pointless. Yeah.
It's pointless, yes.
You know, to move away from pointless discussions. But you need to be able to convince people that this is a pointless discussion as well. So coding styles is very subject. Some people will find this is correct or this is not correct. I think one thing that you need to agree with your team is some code standards. So if your team doesn't have code standards, this could be a very contagious problem that a few developers think this is the best way. The other one thinks is a different way. So there needs to have some concessions and you need to be able to write down what are the standards that we're following on this project or in this team. It would be great if you have that in the whole company, but you need to try to find a common ground on code styles, code patterns, all of that. But for me, when I'm looking to a code review, my first goal is readability. Can I read what he's pointing out? Can I reduce complexity? Can I split in functions? So it's not about like coding stuff that doesn't bother me that much. It's more about, can I read this one? If I'm fresh on this specific PR, can I understand what he's trying to do without even reading the description? Can I see in his code what he's trying to achieve? And I think this is the biggest one. And it goes for smaller divs, smaller PRs. As soon as you have smaller PRs, it's easy to review, and it makes the data flow and the coding stream easier.
Very good. And you also mentioned about creating impact. So when you talk about creating impact, do you mean like creating components that will increase productivity from developers? Or do you mean, for example, to find a solution, a technical solution that will save money from the company? So how do you define creating impact exactly for a company?
This is more like a guideline. So it depends on the project you are, depends on how you're doing. But I think you need to use as a North Star, is it on the project that I'm doing? How can my productivity, my output have an increase in impact? And you need to be able, and this is not easy, not every team or every company allows that, but you need to be able to look for the projects or look for the what you need to implement and go, this is the higher impact that will do, or this is the way that I can influence others as well. So a really good example of increasing your impact is mentorship. So you could code normally throughout the whole year, produce the best code output you have. But if you're not helping your teammates, their code is not going to be as good or the same quality you're producing. But now, if you spend 20% of your time helping them get a better code quality, helping them introduce better output, even if you're producing 20% less code or less projects, or mates on your team are producing 20% more, 30% more. So you need to think through the whole project or the whole team. You need to be able to communicate better. You need to be able to convince people. You need to be able to talk to different, we call XFNs, different stakeholders throughout the project. And it's not like stakeholders of a client or the manager, but people that are interested in that solution as well. So now, how can you increase the impact of the project that you're producing? So if you're thinking about, I'm creating a new tool for testing, right? So how can I increase my impact in this project? How can other teams leverage the same product I'm building, the same code I'm building? Can we build this to be reusable? Can we build this to be used by other teams as well? Can we share efforts? Because maybe your problem, it's a problem for other teams as well. Can you share resources to build a tool that will be reused across team, project, or organization?
You mentioned something about influencing the team. How do you do to influence the team so that the team trusts you? Can you share with us a good way to share ideas with the team and they trust you and they follow your principles?
One thing that we were talking, this was me and a friend. First, you need time. You're never gonna get these like in the first day, ever. No one will trust you on day one. Second is you need to make concessions. You need to come into a team. You don't know how they work. You don't know what they're doing. So first, you need to learn. You need to get in and understand what are the code practice, what are the code standards, what you guys are building, what we're trying to build, and then we go back to example. You need to start showing them that first you know how to code, you know how to produce, you know how to work, but you need to be empathic as well to help them build. So how can we? You need to be doing code reviews. You need to join the team. You need to be able to work with them. If you get to a team thinking you're the best one, you're never gonna get trust. And also, you need to be making concessions. So we need to understand, and this is soft skills. This is very hard for every developer, especially seniors, to get into a team and understand you don't have the best code practices. And you might think you have, but you don't. I got into a team in Meta, like I was working for a year, and then I was kind of borrowed to another team. And I started creating new PRs every day. And I was getting hammered by code standards. And I learned standards that I never thought about. And it's like, man, I worked in this profession for 12 years already. And I'm seeing like things that make sense. But I needed first to be open minded to understand, hey, first of all, my code might not be at the standards that this team is used to. And again, to achieve readability, you need to be able to express what you're trying to do. Even if you're following the best standards ever, if the team that you're working on is not getting what you're coding, you're not readable. So it's a two-way thing. It's not only what I'm trying to say, but it's also what you can hear about it. I think this is what we need to do. First, be humble when you join your team and your organization. Then with time, if you're empathic, if you start mentoring, if you start coding in a high standard, people will notice and you're going to start getting, let's say, more morale with the team.
Yeah, you mentioned another important topic, which is how to show your work without being annoying. So, what are your thoughts about that? Because you mentioned that to gain trust, you need to show your work. So, what are your thoughts about showing your work and not being annoying or not being that person who brags a lot?
That's the
Share,
simplest one. That's the
share your
simplest.
thoughts about
Don't
this one.
brag. Just don't brag about it. I think that's
But
a common thing. We want to show our work. We want to show. As soon as started working, if you're producing, sooner or later, people will start noticing. Your manager will start noticing. Your teammates will start noticing because you work on the same team. And you're probably in a team that use some agile project or some agile methodology, and they're going to start seeing tasks flying through the sprints, right? But you need to be consistent as well. It doesn't matter if you close 6 tasks in one sprint and then you just don't do anything on the next sprint. But I think my golden rule is you don't need to produce really high amount, but you need to be consistent. You need to be consistent. People can, or your PM or your manager can be able to say, oh, he's going to produce 2 tasks. This is, this is for sure. And people like a lot about consistency. If you're able to produce 6 tasks in a sprint, 0 in the others, 4 in the second, 0 in the others, it's better for you to produce 2 each sprint than be so unconstant.
makes sense. And how to keep this consistency?
I think motivation is a main factor. You need to be able to find a motivation. It could be any different factors. A lot of people is motivated by money. A lot of people is motivated by learning. A lot of people is motivated by a nice project, new technologies. But again, to be able to conciliate your project to your goals, you need to be able to uh, talk that to your manager, talk that to your team structure. I wouldn't say not just a manager, but maybe a team lead, a tech lead. If you're not able to express what you like or your motivates you, it's very hard to align with the team or to align with the organization or your team or your company does not care about your motivation. You need to move company. That's bottom line. You need to move teams. You need to move companies. You need to be able to say, hey, this is not going to give me career progression or this is going to be motivating me. So what can you do? So you can try, you can talk to your manager, you can get your clear goals in front of everybody that is able to make a change. But you need to be able to move yourself as well, change teams or change companies.
Yes, that makes sense. And how to stay up to date as a software engineer? That's so tough. I know that many developers struggle so much with that. and they lack confidence, they feel anxious, they go through the tutorial hell on YouTube. There are lots of issues happening because of that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It goes back to consistency. I don't think you need to read a book per week. I don't think you need to learn a new technology every month. But I think you need to be consistent on something or learning materials, or maybe once a month, you're going to do a new course or you're going to do yourself. But I think for me, what works really well is literally do by myself. So I go for online course or for tutorials. Don't be, I think one thing that people doesn't like to do is spend money on courses or on things that real career grow yourself. I love like Udemy. I love going to different online courses. And I love online courses because I like to learn by my pace. I want to be able to 7 p.m. If I want to read a little bit, I want to open a website. I don't want to wait for a teacher. But this might be different from different people. Some people needs to be in front of a professor or someone guiding them. But I think you need to be consistent. If you want to learn a new drill, all right, let's do 1 hour a week. But you need to be consistent. You need to do it. You know what? I'm going to do 1 hour a week. Let's do it. And again, it needs to have a motivation factor. You need to want to learn, first of all. If you don't want, nothing's going to get to your mind. But now, what do you want to learn? So there's a new framework. Let's go through them. Let's learn from them. Do it yourself. Try locally, try in your machine, try in your life. But you need to be able to consistently spend some time on something that you like, a new framework, a new project, or technology.
And how to develop this motivation to learn new technologies?
I think you need to be curious. I think you need to first focus. You don't need to like go searching or looking for the brightest and shiniest thing right now or every time, because it's very frustrating. For example, now the new shiny thing is AI. Everybody needs to understand AI. Everybody needs to try AI. If you don't like AI, don't go. Just don't do it because everybody's doing it. But you might be really keen to learn a new JavaScript framework because it's really easy to learn or has a low curve. It's very simple to do a new UI, or you're trying to get a grasp on this new technology. Then go for it. Spend an hour, buy a new online course, try a little bit. And if it's not something that you thought you were, just drop it and go for a different one. But you need to motivate yourself and start learning a little bit. And I think there's multiple things that you can do and you should do. One that I like a lot is always trying to build a personal project. Doesn't need to be fast. It doesn't need to be quick or only one technology, but find a personal project that you want to work on, especially to try new technologies, especially to work as a learning objective as well, because you're gonna start getting to pitfalls during software development that you're gonna learn through the experience. So maybe you manage a personal system or a chatbot or whatever you want to build, but you're trying to find a project that you want to personally work on, and then you're trying to adapt to the technology that you're trying to learn as well. Maybe you want to learn React. So then I need to build a new UI, maybe to use a chatbot or to test the chatbot. Then you can, you know what, I can start programming in React, maybe buying a course in React. Then you can actually start following the tutorial to your personal project. And I think for me, this is the best way to learn, especially when you're in software development. You need to be able to do it yourself. You're never going to learn, you're never going to get into the details if you don't program or if you don't do it yourself.
That's a very good insight. And a common question I have from developers is how to have ideas for a project. So, do you have an advice regarding that?
I do. I think you always needs to try to solve a problem in your life as well. It will make more, I would say, dignifying through the project, because you're going to start like, I'm solving a problem for myself. I'm trying to execute on a plan that I know is gonna improve some automation in my life. Maybe. I usually go for small automations. One automation that I have that is really cool. And a few years back, and I mean at least 3 years, I bought like a Hue lamp. It's a Philip bulb that you buy on Amazon. It's a little bit spicy, but say if you buy one or two, it's like 40 euros, you know, with the bridge, everything. And I started doing one thing. Of course, there's way more infrastructure involved, but every time that a GitHub action fails or succeeds, the bulb actually lights up with green or red. And I know the pipeline actually failed or not. Because the pipeline can take like 2, 3 minutes. You don't want to be staring at it. So you can actually push the commit, start the PR, pipeline will trigger, and in a few minutes you're gonna know because the bulb is in front of you, you know. So you can try to find some small things in your life or small automations that you can do in your home, in your room. But my tip is to try to solve a problem in your life. So maybe you and me, we used to invest. So maybe you can try to find a web scraper to get first, especially we need just the data. Let's get the information, maybe daily of a stock, and then we can start improving. And then you're gonna start facing the challenges on each one of the situations. And then you're gonna learn how is the right way to solve this, or how can I solve this specific problem. You're gonna start facing concurrence, you're gonna start facing duplication, and then you can start finding alternatives or strategies to mitigate, but you're going to learn through the process.
Very good. I really like the idea of the light bulb. If you have a reference or something that people can follow up, that would be great. We can leave here in the comment.
I do. I think code base that I built, I actually, it's a little bit, it should be better on the Philips side, but it's a REST API that the bridge has. So locally, you can actually make REST calls to your device to get the state. But the way I solved, and this was just to be fair, like 4 years ago, it's actually just a scraper that every second tries to get the state of the bulb. And if I need, this was the first stage. So just to monitor the bulb state. And if I need to push some change, then the second step is to make a post request, just to say change. You select, it's very lightweight payload that you send to the bridge, like color, device, on, off. It's very simple, but it's very handy to learn, especially like REST protocols, basic stuff for web. It would be great if the change could be pushed to a webhook, but that's not the case. But I think I have the code base filed and it's open for everyone to improve as well. I still have this service running nowadays just to monitor the state of some bulbs in my home. But we can definitely share the Git project. It's used quite of a extensive, let's say, infrastructure. It is a REST call, a REST service running Docker that publishes the notification to a Kafka. So,
Amazing.
so then you can start playing around. Well, what is the next step? So the first step is to get status. But now, what if I want to publish? What if I want to post a color change? And that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's fairly rudimentary code. It's not great, but does the job. It's running for 4 years and I never had a bug. So
So
pretty well.
robust codes then. Robust code. Very
But
good.
I'm going to share the code base and we can get some tips as well. And maybe someone can actually propose some improvements. Why not?
Definitely. And it is also a real example that personal projects really improve your software engineer skills. And that's your real projects that you're sharing with everyone. So I think that's great because then people will realize the importance of having a personal project.
Yeah. I just don't like to say This is a enterprise grade project because when you're doing a personal project, you're not going to do like highly tested software. You're not going to worry too much about it. But I think it's great for you to actually learn through the problem. So don't worry too much about enterprise quality grade or whatever you do at your job right now, because your focus is learning, is not having a really good quality of software. I think this is a thing that I do by myself. So the type of project when I'm testing, it's probably one of the worst code ever, but it has a purpose, which is learning. It's not
Yeah.
to be reusable, it's not to be readable. The goal is simple. It's not to be tested. The goal is to have up and running and we can test different scenarios and see the problems in real life.
And let's suppose this scenario that, for example, you never used Kafka in your day-to-day job or any other technology. How do you learn about those technologies and implement whatever you need in your project?
There's different degrees of the learning curve. I would say the first time is to try it out. Go Google, go YouTube, check what it is, the basic stuff. And the best way to learn is now, how can I actually read? How can I post? Then you need to do yourself. And I think this is the most important thing. To do it, to get to a level that you're comfortable, you might need to buy a Udemy or any other platform, learning platform specifically for that definition or for that technology, which usually is very cheap. I bought like my courses on Udemy. I always get them on promo. I don't know if it's a marketing strategy, but it's always like 10, 9 euros tops. Like you never pay more than 10 per course. It might not be good enough. Like you might not follow the full tutorial, or it might not be tailored to what you're trying to do, but you can actually skip or go directly to whatever you want to do. And you're going to learn through the process. You're never gonna get like code full software through the enterprise doing whatever you want, or someone telling you exactly what you want to hear. But you need to get bits of information from different sources, and you need to try yourself and you need to run yourself. You need to be able to debug what is failing, go back, search what might be the root cause, and actually make it work. I think that the failures will actually teach more than whatever you do right on the first time.
For sure. The more you struggle, the more mistakes you make by developing something. It's when you learn the most because learning theory is never enough, right? When we are going to do the thing effectively, there will be errors, there will be exceptions. You have to figure out, have to solve the problem yourself.
Yes, exactly. And nowadays, like the last 2, 3 years, in my opinion, it's so easy to try new technologies. For example, let's start with Kafka. Confluent actually has a free service that you can try Kafka online. So you don't even need to know how to deploy a Kafka cluster or a Kafka locally to even test Kafka. So you literally for free, you can create an account. You don't even need to create the account nowadays. It's just linked to your Google profile. You just say, I'm going to log in with Google. They're going to create the whole infrastructure for you. And you create a topic. And then you literally can start testing whatever you set up a small Java Spring Boot project, and you can actually connect and read and post messages without any knowledge of infrastructure or even Linux to set up a new server or whatever. You have all for free. This is the same for Mongo. I was trying a few years back Mongo. I needed to set up a whole new machine, Linux, then install Mongo, all of that. Now you can literally in 2 clicks, 3 clicks, you have a new Mongo deployed, clusterized on the cloud in whatever place in the world for free. Of course, there's the free tier limits. But for example, if I remember, the free tier from Mongo was like half a terabyte, a shared 3 node cluster anywhere in the world. It's nonsense. It's a lot of resources for free that you can test online. So you can even test Mongo. You don't need to run it locally. You can have it on a cloud, or you can even select the cloud on those services. You can select if it's GCP, if it's AWS, Azure, you select the country, all of that. So I think it makes it easy nowadays to actually test it and set up the infrastructure for any project that you might want to try out.
That's really good. And can you tell me, Eduardo, what's the best thing about working for a big tech company?
I think it might be different from startups, but what I love from big techs is you have a lot of benefits like that are not compounding on your salary or your compensation. For example, in Meta specifically, every office has free food, lunch, dinner, breakfast. So you don't need to worry about going to the office. What is going to be my lunch? I need to go outside. It's very handy. Also, you have free coffee. You have a lot of amenities. In Meta specifically, you can charge your car for free if you have an electric or hybrid car. What else? You in Meta in Dublin, we don't have a gym, but I know other places they have gyms. We have a service for cleaning your car in the office. We have massage services that you can pay. Those are paid, but you can easily schedule a massage in the office for once a week. And I think those structures, so the company is so well set up, so well structured for the well-being of the employee that is really handy. And I think it makes you feel appreciated as well. It has a psychological factor in it for sure. Compensation is another one. Usually those big techs pay well above the average. So I know we talked about in the past about compensation. Those numbers are for big tech. And I want to say they usually are 20-30% higher than the average market as well. What else? Compensation, amenities, benefits. Oh, because usually the big techs are so well structured on the engineering factor, they usually have a very clear guideline for everything that you do. For example, it's very well set up. I'm a remote worker right now. I go to the office like twice a month, but it's very well set up that I can work remote 20 days a year in whatever place I want. So I can go back to Brazil, work remote a few days, and then go back to Ireland. So this is very good to have written in paper, in my opinion. What is the guideline? What can you do? What can't you do? Because it's easy to organize yourself or your life about it. They have a really good strategy for moving abroad. So you can actually quest to move remote in another country, especially in Europe, without any major change in your role, any major change in your compensation. In theory, I could request, you know what, I want to live in France. Let me request to become a remote worker in France. Of course, compensation can be affected. Of course, there's a whole new things to set up on your life, but on your work, on your daily work, nothing will change. I think this is a major factor as well, like being able to understand how compensation works, how your daily works, how your remote work works. Yeah. I think those are hidden benefits that sometimes we don't account for.
Yeah, I particularly like, and not only me, many developers ask me how to get a remote job. Every developer wants that basically.
That's a
And
good question. And I have one tip, especially Meta. So a lot of big companies nowadays are rolling back their remote positions. But one thing that I notice is if you join a company, usually they want you in person, especially in the first year. First, they want to make sure that you're performing well, making sure that you were onboarded correctly. And after your first year, especially after a performance cycle, you can actually apply for remote. So it's very common for you to not see new job offers remote, but those big tech companies usually allow yourself to ask for a remote position after, especially in tech, after you onboard it, after your performance is okay, they usually allow you to become a remote worker.
Was this your case? Did you join Meta as a remote worker or just now?
Well, my case was slightly different just because I joined Meta on the height of the pandemic. So my onboard was remote, everything was remote, but I wasn't considered a remote worker. It was on the verge of pandemic. After the pandemics slowed down, what they started doing is we're gonna enable a remote worker, but you need to apply. If you're not applying, we expect you 3 days in the office. And I think that's fair. If you think through the process of the Meta as the office organization, well, I'm not saying globally, each office has its constraints. For example, Meta in Dublin, they have a huge campus. They need to think about food for everybody involved. I think having a better understanding of people who is coming to the office helps a lot on planning. So what they were asking is if you want to be remote, you need to apply to be remote. You need to be on a performance nice. So if you're on their PEEP or if you're on any performance improvement plan or you're not achieving your goals, then you cannot be remote because you need to be in office, you need to learn more, probably you need to be more in collaboration. But if your job can be done remote and your performance is on the level they expect, they will approve the problem. They actually will give benefits for it. For example, for your internet at home, if you're remote. So it's actually a plus being remote depending on the situation. So when I joined was on the apps of the pandemic. So as soon as they lay out that specific guideline, then I applied for remote work, which is really good as well because they lay out the whole plan. So usually those companies, because they're well structured, they will lay out the plan for the whole company. So you don't need to worry about your boss not being correct or your boss personal feelings about remote. They will need to abide by the major structure plan layout by the company directors.
Amazing. So, okay, changing a little bit the subject now. I would like to know what technologies should developer focus on nowadays because we know that there are so many technologies, so many things to try and to practice. So, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are probably different from everybody else that you're going to learn in technology. I would say forget about these new shiny technologies. They don't matter as much as you think they matter, especially coding frameworks or language. I would say it doesn't matter what language you're coding. I think you need to be proficient in one. You need to choose one. It doesn't need to be a major one. If I'm telling you that Java needs to be your focus, I'm lying. There's plenty of really good new language. So you can try Golang, Python, Java, JavaScript. I think you need to be well knowledgeable about one of them. And the other ones or whatever you need as a framework will come by as a secondary skill that you're going to learn really quick, just because you know the concepts. What I really think as a growing in your professional is I think you need actually to improve your soft skills. I think every developer is probably really good in the technology they learn or they work. I think what you need to focus is on soft skills. Negotiation skills is really important. Conversations, dealing with different opinions, dealing with different types of developer, and factoring agile technologies. I know a lot of them, and I see a lot of people complaining about agile technologies. And I think you need to know really well to even understand what is being done wrong by your company or by your project team. So if you really know about agile technology, what they're proposing, it's even easier to confront and say, hey, we don't need to do this. We don't need to do it daily. We don't need to do a demo. It is not part of specifically of our project or of our team to do a demo. Why we are wasting time doing a demo? So I think you need to actually understand better and improve your soft skills. I think this is the most important for a developer to grow in their career. So I think it's more important for developers to focus on their soft skills than actually their technical skills. I think technical skills, they're going to come day by day on work, on your personal projects. You're going to learn them through whenever you need or whatever you're curious about it. I don't think there's a specific technology that you need to focus on. I would go, if I need to focus on one thing, would be the developer's soft skills.
Soft skills. Amazing. I agree with you. And you mentioned about agile technologies. What would be that? Agile technologies or agile methodologies?
Well, agile methodologies, I mean technologies like they are interchangeable, I'll say the term, but it's methodologies. I want to say
It's
agile.
interchangeable.
It's interchangeable. Like when I mean technologies are more applicable to your team. For example, if your team is working on Scrum, I think it's great for you to actually go learn about the root of Scrum, why it was built, when it was built, and what it's proposing. So you can, in your team meetings, you understand, hey, why we're doing this. This is not what Scrum is about. Why we're doing the other thing because it makes no sense. And then you can actually focus your team time and efforts to do what really matters. And I think a lot of frustration around the Java methodologies is sometimes they're using wrong or people just doing whatever they were told in college, especially non-technical folks.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to adapt the Scrum methodology to what you need in your team because I never see a company following Scrum or any methodology by the book. They always adapt in some way. But I also see your point because there are also many companies doing ceremonies that are useless. They don't bring any value. And identifying those blind spots can definitely help software development.
Yeah, but you need to what I mean is you need to learn or study a little bit the methodology to say, oh, this makes no sense or this is wrong. Or also a lot of them are just frameworks. And yes, people implement that. People make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So I think we need to start learning through. And it's a cycle process. We need to improve every cycle. So if we're not doing that, we're not following the methodology at all.
Yeah, I heard that there are horrible companies where they do stand-up meetings of 1 hour and they do this
One
meeting.
of them. I've been in
Oh,
one of those companies, the believe
okay.
me.
So you've been a horrible company, like they follow the Scrum methodology totally wrong. So
They
you're not,
can what I
you
say,
don't, you don't
but
need to give the full update in a stand-up meeting. Stand-up meeting, is just to say what you're doing, if you have any blockers, and that's it. Should be simple. Like it's not to give the full status. Otherwise, you waste your time and everyone else's time.
I've been in a company that they were doing stand-ups across multiple teams. So every team, like 5 teams joins the same call, and it's literally like 40 to 50 people in the same call doing updates on projects that we don't have a clue about it. And we spend like an hour to go through everybody's update. They were doing like quick updates, but it was even worse because your quick update makes no sense to me. You're in a completely different team, in completely different projects and even tools, but everybody was in the same room. So they are using stand-ups just for managers updates. And what isn't doing stand-up for the right way of blocking the team and having a small team? No, they were doing like completely nonsense. And this is going to happen a lot because someone once joined the company and made those calls. And we need to be able to first improve the process, fight those inefficiencies. It's not easy. I could not change that company. So it's more complex than we think, especially on change. People were usually are very reluctant to change.
Yes. There's also a little bit of politics behind the scenes. You have to be aware of what's going on, and you can speak to someone and see how it goes. You have to know where you are going to, because otherwise there might be people there who doesn't like your opinion. In companies, you have to be careful sometimes. It's not easy to change the culture, but this is ridiculous. 1 hour stand up meetings. The manager who had this idea is uh, incompetent. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any
I
sense.
think the manager who keeps these ideas well might need some change, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, if we go through this thread, it's gonna be a really a
But
really long meeting.
that's why it's so important to improve your soft skills, because you need to be able to convince people this is wrong, and you need to change their minds about what can we done slowly change to get to a better position place.
Amazing. Oh, the point I was going to ask you regarding the technologies. Do you think it's useful to use AI as well to learn technologies? Because nowadays we have extremely powerful AI. So what are your thoughts about using AI to learn?
To learn it, I tried a few times, especially ChatGPT, especially trying to debug code or correct code or find a new code. It's not as great as I thought it would be. But what I love about AI tools is how you can actually automate your daily routines. So I think this is more important than actually on the learning perspective. For example, nowadays we were having all of them integrated in Microsoft tools or even Apple's is bringing them. So I think worth a shot to, for example, use those tools to reply to emails. Sometimes you have a really big email that you need to write or you need to be very careful. So it's easy to go on ChatGPT and say, hey, help me politely refuse this request. And he's going to write you a full email that you're going to waste like 10 minutes on it. Same for performance review. I need to write a really big performance review text, and this is going to take an hour, 2 hours on my day. So now you can use a really good tool to do those automated and things that you otherwise would spend a lot of time on and a lot of mental resource to do it, especially us as a developer. We know we hate writing emails, we hate writing documentation. Forward documentation is a piece as well. But I don't think for learning is the best one. I might be wrong depending on the subject, depending on what you're actually trying to do. Coding wise, it was not as what I was expecting.
Yeah, I particularly like a lot to use AI to learn. I've been using GPT-4 and for example, to learn a technology that I never used before, I ask the big picture of the technology. Then when I see a topic that I'm interested in, I ask again, I say, hey, what is this about? And then I ask for a code example. And then you can have almost like an infinite chat with ChatGPT 4, and you can learn a lot. It's just amazing, like
You're
what you can do, like the flexibility you have to learn, because it's not like a course, it's more interactive. And then you can get that code, you can do your own tests, you can make the changes you want. And it's extremely powerful tool for learning.
you're right. I forgot a moment that I had in the past. I was having a very specific moment that I had a React code that I wanna to use TypeScript on it. And it was really good. Like some of the code did not compile, but the structure of TypeScript on React was really good. But I think the problem is you need to understand what you want specifically. Otherwise, it will not help you at all. It will give you more unknown variables than actually known variables, I would say. But yeah, you're right. If you're focused on specific technology, ChatGPT will help you a lot, giving you overviews, giving you code examples. I think that's the best one. code examples, it does pretty good.
Yeah. And also, for example, if you have a mistake, an error in your code, you can ask AI to tell you what's going on. And okay, sometimes it won't help you, it won't give you the right answer, but it might give you a good insight to look for yourself and run some tests. And for example, if you want to change a language, like let's suppose you want to change your Java project to Kotlin, you can simply say, hey, AI, change this whole project from Java to Kotlin. It's going to do that for you right away. So you can even create tests, create whatever you can imagine. And it's so easy as well to talk with AI. You don't need to talk in details. You can say something very simple and AI will understand you. So it's an extremely powerful tool for learning.
Yeah, I would like fight against the idea of changing the technology is actually a learning prospect. I think it's more about an automation. As you said, oh, I can get a project in Java and put in Kotlin. This is more like an automation to do than actually a learning process. But I get your point, and yes, it's really good for doing those automations. And
Yeah. You're right. This is more of an automation than learning.
but that's why I said it's really good. This is actually what is really good for using AI to do it. Like anything that you need to do by a bulk is really good. So you get a project. Another project that I did really good is updating versions on Spring Boot. You usually get an error. If those errors you ask ChatGPT, he's going to give a really good direction, especially if you have no clue what the error might be. And you say, hey, I'm updating version 1.20 to 1.23, and I'm getting this error. He's going to give you a really good insight of what you need to do or what we need to change.
Yeah, it's AI is very powerful and it will keep growing and becoming better.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So you mentioned about courses. So in your opinion, developers should do courses as they need because also doing courses randomly doesn't help much. So basically, your idea is to when developers are working on a personal project and they want to implement Kafka or they want to use Docker or Kubernetes, they go to a specific point of the course, they learn that specific topic, and they really do something with this knowledge rather than only watching videos because we know that doesn't work, right? We need to take action so that it becomes a real skill.
Yes, I think you need to do it by yourself and you need to get your hands dirty. I don't think any just listening to course will help a lot. And that's why probably I tried once. Remember that I had a really big commute to one company that I worked, like was 1 hour going, 1 hour on the way back. And I was trying some audio courses and it didn't work at all. I could listen for hours, but it wouldn't get into my mind if I'm not in front of computer trying the concepts they are actually telling us. Even if it's very theoretical courses, you still need to actually dig deep into the concepts and do by yourself. So even if you're listening to code practices, if you don't do one of the examples, I don't think it's going to get into your mind easily as only listening to. So I would recommend always find a project to try on the technology you're trying to learn or you're trying to get it. And for that reason, I think we should start with the project, then decide the technology later. If you decide the technology, you might not have a project, you might not have a reason. And that makes the learning curve a little bit frustrating, in my opinion.
Interesting. So when you have an idea, do you do uh, system design or database design? So let's suppose you have an idea of a project. Do you design the system before starting or start right away doing the code? So what's your approach to create a project from scratch?
I should design more, to be fair. I usually go directly for the coding because I want to learn as fast as possible. I think everyone wants to dig in directly to the code. I think designing will save you time on the long run. But if you're in just for the learning, I don't think you need to spend too many time designing. For example, let's give you. I want to learn React. I said we should start with a project, but let's start with that technology. I want to learn React. So the best way to learn React is, in my opinion, you start, hey, it's a UI framework on JavaScript and it's used on a website. Okay, so what can I build on a website? I don't know. Let's create just a login system. Then you got to another point. So how are you going to do authentication and authorization? Maybe you don't want to worry about that right now. And I would advocate to not worry about them right now. Go for the React course, doing some coding, npm install, run locally, install the IDE, make sure that the hello world is working, um, build the login UI, build the text, whatever you need, and then now it's done. Okay, it's running. So now I need to submit this to a backend. Now, in a pause, evaluate what will be the next step. Do I have something ready, up and running on OAuth, for example, on authorization? And you might find a tool that already does that for you. And that was actually my one case mine. I actually started implementing OAuth just to learn a UI. And I said, it makes no sense. And I faced so many challenges, so many problems. I actually overcame them. Like literally, I learned and then built a backend just to do authorization using very simple, hard coded usernames and password. Then a few months later, Spring Boot deprecated the whole wall from their, and it was frustrating because it took a long time just to put that project up and running. So a few days later, I learned that there's a project called Auth Zero that is a free or authorization, authentication mechanism and software, let's say software as a service, um, that has a free tier. So it's way easier to actually, you know what, forget about implementing all. I know what all is used for. Now let me focus on the React. That was the project I was trying to learn first. So designing would make my life easier just to say, hey, this is what I'm focused, this is what I'm going to use. But if I'd only start on the React, I spend too much time on the planning project, I'm not going to learn. I'm going to
Yeah.
do a planning course, not a React course. So I think it's a balance between planning and also get your dance early, because I think you need to start as soon as possible as well. Otherwise, you're going to be demotivated. You're going to say, oh, I'm just trying to learn React and now I need to understand OAuth. I need to understand. I need to build a backend just to communicate with my UI. And I think there's really good tools that can help you to reuse whatever is already been built just for you to focus on what you want to focus.
Yeah, it's a lot more work. If you put another security concept that's it's not simple, like OAuth, it might even demotivate you because your objective is to learn React, but then you have something else which is big. It's just not something that you would learn overnight. It will take some time and effort. So OAuth is another whole concept that it's not simple at all. So yeah, that's a good insight. Like when a developer wants to learn a specific technology, don't overwhelm yourself trying to learn technologies around it. Otherwise, you might get demotivated and you might waste time. So, what is your golden tip for developers to create high quality software?
I think I said this before, but in my opinion, the golden rule is readability.
Readability.
Yes, your code needs to be easily understandable, and a null developer needs to go in and understand with like very little insight of what you're trying to do. And there's really good techniques to do that. I'm not going to go into them, but I think you need to focus, learn, and study about readability, co-readability. And this varies by technologies. This varies by frameworks. But in general, the concepts are the same. I think your focus does not need to be testing, does not need to be about performance initially or over optimization. It needs to be about readability. So on the software life cycle, your code is going to be changed so many times, and readability is a focus to easy that process.
Yeah, like one very powerful way to have your code really readable is to apply solid principles. Like the one I think is the most powerful principle of solid, which is the single responsibility principle. Because I do see many senior developers, unfortunately, many senior developers creating a huge function, a huge method with, I don't know, more than 1,000 lines. I've seen that in my previous job. I've seen senior, I don't know if they were, but at least their title, senior developers creating unit tests of 1,000 lines. I'm not kidding. And their service methods had 1,000 lines, and I had to maintain that code.
This is,
And
yeah, this is bad.
yeah,
No,
and I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally 1,000 lines. Unfortunately, there is a lack of knowledge on many developers. And so, one thing I tell to every developer, break down your method, break down your classes, separate concerns. And one way that's easy to see if the code is bad or not is to check if the unit tests are easy to implement, right? I think unit tests are very useful to see if your code is good or not. If you see that it's complicated, it's difficult, the code is not good, code is bad.
we even need to implement the code, the unit test. Just think about if it's easier not to implement, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or the developer can even use TDD, right? To write the tests before writing the real code. And if you notice, like the Uncle Bob book, he mentions so much about solid, the clean code and clean architecture.
Yeah.
It's all about solid. Those are principles that is the simple thing that is not easy to implement, right? It's
Yeah.
simple, but not easy because sometimes to break down methods, to break down classes, not easy. You have to really think about it and so that your code gets as simple as possible so that other developers can easily understand what you're writing.
Yes. I think it helps a lot in reusability as well. As you break down your ideas and your methods, they're going to become more reusable. So it's about like the readability. Focus on readability will help other principles as well. Testing, it will help on reusability, just making sure that your code is more readable.
And maintainability as well, because
Oh, yeah.
like it's good for fix bugs, right? Because if you see a code that is, it's easy to understand, you're going to fix a bug much more quickly. And it's also a lot easier to add new features. Imagine if you implement all the solid principles, adding a new feature so easy.
Exactly. Yes, definitely.
And yeah, that's one thing that it's a big issue in the industry. It's a big issue.
It is. Especially because developers will move on from their roles, but their code gonna still be over there running for years and in the situation.
Yeah. And another thing that's is simple but not easy to implement is the naming, right? Naming classes, naming methods, naming variables. It's something so simple, but people still use crazy names with acronyms that have no idea what they're talking about. Lack of documentation. Like you see very complicated APIs with no documentation. You have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah. I think readability even helps on documentation as well. Like, I don't know who, I read in book, I don't know which one, but it said, if you have a really good readable code with very good split between what they need to do each method, the name of the method will be the documentation.
Exactly.
If you need to write documentation, you're doing it right.
Yeah. Obviously, there is some caveats there, right? Because if you're writing an API, you need to have documentation. An API is different than internal methods. And also, the other caveat is that you have to be careful to take things by the book because
Always,
sometimes you need to do something there specific because you have technology limitations or whatever is the exceptional case. Some exceptional cases, you have to add uh, some documentation there. But usually, in general cases, if you write your code in a way that doesn't require documentation, it means that your code is good.
yep, yep.
Okay, Eduardo. So, what is your next career steps?
I still not 100% sure, but I don't see myself as a manager. I don't see myself as a director or any other managing position. I like what I do. I like coding. I like technical challenge. I think for me, it's more about being financially free. I do a lot of investments. I look for a lot of investments. But my goal is to keep on a technical role, probably a more senior, more a leading position, but it's still technical. I see myself as if the next role is not 40 to 50% coding, I'll probably won't be doing. Or I won't say won't be doing, but it's not what I aiming to do.
Very good. Eduardo, thank you so much for your insights. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your experience in how to become a better software engineer. And is there any last words you want to say to everyone?
Just to focus on your study, there's really good content for study. I don't think we are in a profession that we can afford not to keep studying. So I'd say keep studying new technologies, whatever you want to learn on our career.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eduardo. So never stop learning. That's a very good advice. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, Eduardo. And thank you, Challenger, for watching this video. See you.
Yeah.